Call the Rutherford County Regional Planning Commission to order. Would you stand with me, please? I'll lead the prayer, and Richie will lead the pledge. Bow with me, please. Heavenly Father, we thank you again for this day and the blessings and opportunities you give us. We continue to pray, Heavenly Father, for those flood victims that we've had here in our communities, and we also pray for those in Arkansas, Heavenly Father. We pray for those families. May you reach out your healing hand to them, and we just pray for them. Pray that you'll be with us tonight in this meeting. In Christ's name we pray. Amen. Place the flag, please.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Be seated. Call the roll, please, ma'am.
Rhonda Allen. Here. Richie Boland.
Here.
Veronica Buchanan.
Here.
Gary Farley.
Here.
Will Jordan.
Here.
Mike Cush.
Present.
Jeff Phillips.
Present.
Steve Sandlin.
Here.
Mike Vaught. Vincent Windrow.
Here.
Craig Lynch.
Present.
We have a quorum.
All right. I'll entertain a motion on the mailing of our minutes. Do I have a second? Steve, second. All in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. Motion carries. David, Codes Department.
Building Code Department report for May is on the desk, Mr. Chairman.
All right. You may look over those, and if you have any questions on the building, on the Codes Department. Doug, anything withdrawn or deferred?
No, sir.
Reclassification request, Kelly Adcock, rezoning and conditional use permit.
Thank you, Chairman Lynch. Our first application this evening is at 1587 Compton Road. The applicant is requesting to rezone 2.19 acres from a 8.64 acre tract. Now, since the agenda packet was sent out, we have received the legal description for the parcel, so you'll find a map in front of you showing the actual 2.19 acres drawn out correctly. Now, the property is currently zoned R15. This portion is proposed to be rezoned to services with a conditional use permit for a landscaping business. The applicant is proposing rents a portion of the property for her landscaping business. She stores stock trees and shrubs on site until they can be planted on the customer's property. There's also some retail sales of trees and shrubs that do take place on the site at Compton Road as well. The property is served by a water line. However, the applicant uses a well to water the plants at this time. She also parks work vehicles on site, a trailer, some skid steers, and some trucks. They actually are out of sight of the Compton Road, so you can't see them. Now, the existing house on the site, which you see on her sketch here, is actually not used for anything. It's in a little bit of disrepair, and there's no plans on using it in the future for anything. The applicant does keep a camper trailer on site in order to be able to get out of the weather while she is on the property. The hours of operation for the business would be Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. through 5 p.m., and Saturday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Now, the surrounding area is predominantly zoned R15. However, there are many conditional use permits issued for the area, one for tractor sales, another for real estate office, third for farm equipment and machinery sales, and then there is an electric substation right across the road as well. There is also a convenience market located across the road that was built in 1972. Now, the North Area Land Use Plan shows the future use of this property as residential. However, it is adjacent to an intermediate business node at the intersection of Las Casas and Compton, which would be for limited commercial activity. So this is just looking into the property as it exists today. And there's the existing house I was referring to that is not used. And then the convenience market across the street. So you can see there are, several trees stored on site. The existing camper there. So up and away from the street where you can't see it, there are the vehicles stored. And the applicant is present, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Anybody have any questions before we open it up to a public hearing? Okay, we'll open it up to a public hearing. Does anyone wish to speak for or against? For?
I have some signatures here from my surrounding neighbors.
Okay.
In support of us being over there.
Okay, she has 11 signatures here in support of surrounding neighbors.
Hello, my name is Kelly Adcock. I would like to open a retail sales yard, wholesale there at the property. This would, no time would ever be a major operation. We're seasonal and we don't have a whole lot of traffic in and out. I've got one employee that works for me there and just like your support. I would like to have a sign and, you know, just stay in business there. If there's any way possible, I'd like to get a conditional use permit without having to go through rezoning, but I understand that you have to do, you know, what you have to do, so.
Okay.
We mainly, like I said, we're seasonal, so we bring trees in from McMinnville, from a family business. We hold them there. We use them until we landscape. Most of our trees that we sell are delivered off-site, so we don't do a lot of loading on-site. And like I said, our main hours are mostly weekends. That's our busiest time on Saturday. We're not open on Sunday, and we usually don't start selling to the public through the week until around 10 a.m.
So that's where you are now with this?
Yes.
Where do you envision the business
I don't ever see getting any bigger than that. Our main income is landscaping, so we sell a few trees there on site. I don't see building a building there, or, you know, I have a few vehicles we park there. That's basically it.
Okay, any other questions? Thank you, ma'am. Does anyone else, does anyone like to speak against it? For it?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Ms. Adcock, when I first got the application about her wanting to put this particular services there, I talked to some of the neighbors and they didn't have a problem with it. I think one of the main concerns was the owner of the property, Mr. Mason. He don't want this rezoned to services. She just wanting a conditional use permit just to sell these shrubs and stuff in the fall and the spring. And if it's any way possible, I'd like to amend this rezoning part of it and just for a conditional use permit. And I'd politely ask y'all to approve this. Thank you.
All right.
Any questions?
Any questions? All right, thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak? Okay, we'll close the public hearing. What's your wishes?
I'd like to ask Mr. DeMasi, whoa, all at once. I'd like to ask Mr. DeMasi what he, in the past we've done some of that, just give a conditional use permit, and we've been kind of told that's not proper planning, you know, but I kind of like it myself that way. Put a stipulation that changes, reverts back with change of ownership of the property or something like that. But what are your thoughts on just putting a conditional use?
Well, like you said, I think we've conveyed our thoughts to you before, as far as basically what you're going to have here is a commercial use of land without commercial zoning. That's kind of awkward. Yes, it's been done in the past, and if you choose to do it today, we'll make it work. But staff's preference is that the zoning go along with the conditional use. It also becomes problematic at times if she has any desire for any signage on the property. Commercial zones allow for a certain amount of signage, whereas residential zones don't. It's regardless of whether or not there's a conditional use permit on the property. So that can become problematic. But again, if that's what your desire is, again, it has been done in the past.
So she couldn't have a sign whatsoever if she was not zoned and just had a conditional use permit?
Not for the commercial bid in a residential zone, no, sir. Well,
I really, personally, I don't mind giving her a conditional use permit since there's not going to be a permanent structure there. It's just going to be a camper of some type. It's just kind of a, this business could go away in a matter of hours if somebody's went there and pulled everything out and it's just gone. But I don't know, we might ought to get the applicant back up here to ask if she could live without the sign, because I think she got a sign there now. To tell you the truth.
Would you address that question? Do you want a sign? Yes.
Yes, I would like to have a sign at the location. I was unaware that you couldn't have a sign. I was assuming since the tractor sale across the street from me had the conditional, Mr. Jordan had the conditional use, that I would be able to have some type of sign. But a sign would definitely benefit me there if I'm trying to do business out from that location.
Is the property owner receptive to the property actually being rezoned if it has to be?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
With that said, I'll make a motion to approve the request with the rezoning so she can have her sign.
Okay, do you have a second?
I have a question before we vote. On the public restroom, I was just curious, is there a codes requirement for, since she's offering to the public, is it necessary that she have a public restroom access?
Normally in these kind of conditions, that's a temporary building, temporary sale line, limited hours, that could be a porta potty.
Okay, so porta potty would need to be present?
Yes.
Is that something that needs to be in the conditions or not? Is that separate from that?
That's, I mean, I guess you could, but I mean, that's required anyway.
It's more of a
so
code.
I don't think it has to be in there. For
Okay.
that.
And then the other question I had is on the front, under the long-range transportation plan, you indicated that the planning commission would need to determine if we'd need to have the additional right-of-way. Right now, I guess the road it's required right-of-way of 100 feet, but it currently only has 60 feet. I didn't see that in the conditions.
Well, I left that open for discussion because, as I mentioned, the house, actually now that I have the legal description, is within 5 feet of the road, of the right-of-way, not the road itself, but within the right-of-way. So if you do ask for the extra right-of-way, that will include where the house is currently located.
Is the house in disrepair? I mean, will the house eventually go away? Is that the reason it's not being used, or do we know?
That would be my guess. It's not in the best shape. The applicant stated that there's no future use for the house that she's aware of, but
she doesn't own the property, right?
Right, she's not the
just a
property owner.
Renter,
So.
okay. So what do you think? Doug, what's your suggestion there on the
Well,
right-of-way?
since since this use is more of a seasonal type use, and I would imagine probably maybe after a few years, if she decided to move, there really aren't any permanent structures on this site. It might be more prudent to wait till a more comprehensive redevelopment of the site is done to require any kind of right-of-way. At this time, I'm not. It's not on our radar screen, at least, for any road improvements to this. So.
Okay, all right. Have a motion, have a second. All in favor of the motion say aye. All opposed, no. Motion carries. All right. John McFarland, rezoning and conditional use permit.
Thank you. Our next application is located at 4704 Las Casas Pike. It's approximately 1.66 acres out of a 150-acre tract. It is currently zoned R15, and the proposed rezoning is to retail wholesale trade with a conditional use permit for a gift shop, garden center, pharmacy, walk-in clinic, or an office. So the applicant is proposing to remove the existing house on the property and then kind of regrade the site and construct a new building with the outside appearance of a house. The building may be used as a gift shop for the garden center next door, or it may be used independently as an office or walk-in clinic or pharmacy. The applicant does wish to maintain a 50-foot easement so that he can access the remaining acreage behind the tract. Now, the 3 acres to the east of this property were rezoned to retail wholesale trade in 1993 in order to establish the existing garden center there. The closest other commercial uses are at the intersection of Las Casas and Jefferson Pike, which is approximately 3/4 of a mile down the road. The remaining area is zoned R15. Although the property is just outside the North Area Land Use Plan, across the street, the plan recommends that the future land use of the property be typical density residential. So just looking into the property, this is the existing house that would be removed from the site. And you can see the garden center next door. And you can see this is the house, and then down to the garden center actually is a slightly different grade at this point, but I do believe the applicant is going to rework the site. So the applicant is present, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, any questions here before we open it up to a public hearing? Okay, we'll open up the public hearing. Anyone wish to speak for it?
My My name is John McFarland, and we have 150 acres there. We have a garden center there that's been there since '93. The house that's there was where my father-in-law was living. He's deceased, and we don't need to try to spend a lot of money on the house. I've got some people that are interested in moving it, and we would excavate the land down to about the same level as where the garden center is, and build a commercial building there with the appearance of a home. Now, the reason that I want to do that is because we have access to and from our home and our farm right by that building. And I want to keep a rural setting and don't want the idea of passing by a commercial building is what we're doing. But I've had some interest in it as far as different businesses. I think you have a list of them there. And we would be building, my wife and I would be building the building and renting it out. And we'd keep it in our family. It's part of our farm, and don't plan on selling it. So if you've got any questions, I'll try to answer them there.
Okay. Anyone have questions? Okay. Thank you, sir. Does anyone else wish to speak for or against?
I'm Jack Black, County Commissioner out there in that area, and I talked to the neighbors around there, and folks knows Mr. McFarland. Excuse me, Mr. McFarland. He's a very well respected fella out there, and he's always kept his place good, and I politely asked y'all to approve this. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak for or against it? Okay, we'll close the public hearing, bring it back to the full commission. What's your wishes? Okay, have a motion to approve.
Second.
Have a motion approved, have a second. All in favor of the motion say aye. All opposed, no. Motion carries. Okay. Doug, you have a report?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Oh, wow, these are hot. Mr. Chairman, thank you. Just a couple of brief items. First of all, your agendas that you originally had mailed to you, you probably noticed that there was a line item on there for a presentation by Mr. Ed Cole from the Tennessee Alliance of Middle Tennessee, Transit Alliance of Middle Tennessee, excuse me. He called us a little earlier today, and while he's still interested in doing a presentation to our commission, I believe he said he was going to have some meetings coming up and be getting some further information in regards to what he wants to talk about, and he just feel like he would have more to present probably in August. So just so you know that he's not here today, but we are looking forward to his presentation at the August Day meeting regarding transit in Middle Tennessee. Also on your tables, you'll notice that there is a revised signs proposal before you regarding our proposed amendments to our sign amendments. You'll notice at the very top of each page, I've got it noted, the deleted text was struck through and added text is bolded and italicized for your reference. We listened to a lot of the comments that were made by the Planning Commission, and I'll just run through them just real fast. It shouldn't take much time. On page 3, we have added a definition for outline lighting. Ms. Allen, you had asked a little bit about the neon tube lighting, that kind of thing. I will say that when we first looked at this, we didn't think it was enough, that we dealt with it enough in the county to really make it an issue, which was one of the big reasons we had left it out originally. If it's the desire of the Planning Commission to not have it, then I would just recommend it stay out, because there's a provision in here that says if it's not addressed in these regulations, then it would just not be permitted. However, this is a possible definition that could be used for that. On page 5, we spoke with Middle Tennessee Electric regarding the language we had from clearance from electrical lines. They basically gave us a little different language than what we had in there already. We feel this works better, and they've looked at this and we're fine with that as well. Let's see. The next amendment was on page 8. It's a small one. It's under number 7. This kind of goes back to the window signs that are attached versus visible. We think that with that verbiage in there, along with our definition of window signs that we already had in the ordinance, that should take care of the concerns that we had if somebody mounted it inside, but it could still be seen on the window, it would still be considered window signage in that regard. On page 10, under B, you'll see it's wall signs, but also we put in there, and this was kind of, we just kind of left this out by accident, the deal with wall and graphic signs, those kind of signs that are integral parts of the wall, basically. And right above that, this was Mr. Sandlin, I believe this was a suggestion you had about looking at the possible changeable copy of 50% as opposed to 35% in the commercial and industrial areas, so that takes care of that. There was also some discussion about interstate on-site ground signs. You'll notice on page 11 we did add a section dealing with that. For those businesses that are along at the interchanges, this gives them the ability to have a larger height sign than they are permitted to have, but just in those areas as outlined with the interstate on-site signs. A provision for outline lighting. We tried to keep, especially the interstate on-site ground sign, we kept that fairly similar to Murfreesboro's regulations, with the thought that really the one interchange that really has the development potential is the Epps Mill Road exit, which is served by city sewer, so they have to meet the city guidelines anyway. So we try to keep this as close to that as we could. The height is still lower than what the city would allow, but everything else there was about the same as what the city had. Other than that, I think that was about it. I give this to you really not so much for discussion. If you had questions, of course, we'll be more than happy to answer them. But more or less to say that with those amendments, we feel that this is ready to be considered at a public hearing, and we could do that as early as next month if the commission so desired. So I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, Mike?
Doug, on page 8, item number 7 in the middle of the page, just reading that, if I wanted to play devil's advocate, I would say, is that one sign that equals 25% of the area, or could I have multiple signs that each one would be 25% of the area? I'm just
basically, yeah, I see what you're saying.
I'm just wondering if the language should not say single or multiple signs shall not exceed.
Yeah, and the intent of that is that the area itself does not exceed 25%. Basically, 25% of the window would be allowed to have signage. It could be one sign, or it could be a combination of 2, 3. We don't have a specific number, but I see what you're saying. The wording on that might lend it to say that every sign could be 25%, and then you cover up the entire window. We can tweak that just a little bit to make sure that intent is clear. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? You want it brought back to this meeting or to our?
Well, this, I mean, if you're ready, I don't think this would need another work session. What we can do is put this on the July agenda, and we can advertise to the sign companies just to let them know that this is coming up, kind of like we did for the work session. So.
Okay. Is everybody ready to just do that? Go ahead and advertise, have a public hearing? Okay. Do you want a motion on that?
If you could, yeah.
Think about that work session and then maybe bring it back in August or September or something.
I mean, it's. I guess after we have the public hearing, we can kind of see what kind of comments we get and see what direction we go from there. If the sign folks and everybody who wants to speak on it like the regulations, then I don't see any reason to hold it up. Just go ahead and bring it to the Board of Commissioners in August. But if there's a lot of suggestions and possible changes that need to be made, then I would suggest another work session at that point.
You've sent out, Doug, quite a few to, I guess, our local sign companies or who does a lot of sign business in our
Yes, we sent out about 60. We notified about 60.
You had any feedback from any of them on
not
submissions?
a whole lot. I was actually kind of surprised. We put it on our website.
I think Joslin Sign Company was here
yes,
last
he
week.
Was the gentleman from Joslin
rather.
was here, and he was. If you remember, he just had a few comments. Right. I think he didn't really have a lot of negative things to say about it, just a few things
right.
that I think we've taken care of
right.
in here. But we'll put the notice out there to the sign companies again, just so they're aware that this is coming up.
Also, like feedback from the Building and Codes Department too, because they're going to be enforcing this thing, making sure that they're okay on the way it's written, the wordage, verbiage of it, and everything, and making sure we're very clear on what we've got here. And
I believe we provided Mr. Jones a copy,
workable.
so yeah, we'll make sure that we're coordinating with him as well. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Okay, go ahead.
I got a question about the interstate on-site ground sign. Height shall not exceed 35 feet. Now, is that your full, like what I envision the ground sign is one that's like a brick bottom, whatever, and sign all the way up? Or are this the ones that are out there on the tall poles that have like the Texaco
They call them
sign?
the lollipop signs sometimes.
Yeah, but that's taking those out because those things are 150 feet. Some of them are just enormously tall.
Yeah, they would be limited to 35 feet.
35 feet.
Yeah. Now, the city allows up to 50, if I remember right,
Yeah.
but
I
our
know
height
how-
limitation in the county.
Some of these truck
is
stop
35.
signs are just enormous because the trees are 35 feet tall, a lot of places. And I just, they're up a whole lot higher than that because I know a guy that put up one in Smyrna, his was 65 feet. And he said he was the shortest one at the interchange. He thought it was going to be huge when he got it up. But so I just wonder if that's going to limit like some of these big truck stops that are to be out at some of the more outskirts of the county.
I mean, I'll leave it up to to you.
But the sign companies were involved in the.
Well, we notified them
Yeah.
that we were looking at this for the work session.
Yeah.
Again, we didn't really receive many comments
Yeah.
back. I mean, the
As
gentleman
long as
from
we
Jocelyn-
include them and they get a copy of this to look at, because I had when we talked about the changes before, I had 2 or 3 people that just called me and like, well, I'm not a sign expert, and I hope they got in touch with you and were at least a participant in this.
I mean, we did have, there was one that I can think of in particular that called me, and we talked a little bit
Wright?
about it. What's that?
Don Wright
Yes.
called me.
Yes.
Okay.
On the, you said the interstate signs that Murfreesboro's was 50?
I believe that's right. I don't have it right in front of me, but I think that's, if I remember
Well,
right.
the reason and I may be wrong, I was thinking it was taller than that.
Okay. And you might be right. Again, I don't have it right in front of me. I just know that what we decided after looking at it was this, well, let's just keep our height limitation the way we've got it now, for our maximum height.
My question was going to be, if theirs is higher than that, why is ours 35? What's the reasoning behind that?
I don't really have an answer to that, Mr. Farley. The city, of course, they've got more than one interchange that they're looking at, as far as development's concerned. Really, at this point, really the only interchange that's got any kind of real development, commercial development on it is the Epps Mill Road, the Cannon exit. The only reason that even that level of development is out there at this point is because of the sanitary sewer. Their regulations are looking at it, again, more from an urban standpoint. Ours look at it more from a rural standpoint. So I think that's a lot of the difference right there. But as far as why theirs is so much higher, and you could be right, maybe more than 50 feet. Again, just not having it right in front of me.
But my thought process would be, if it's the interstate, no matter if it's urban or rural.
Mm-hmm. Well, and again, if you would feel more comfortable with us having a little more of the height here, I mean, we can certainly look into that. If you want us to make it like Murfreesboro's, where whatever they're permitted here, they're permitted in the city, that way they're consistent, I mean, there's some advantages to that too. So it's really up to the commission at this point, if that's what you'd like.
I think consistency would be probably the best avenue to take.
Now, and I will say, in some instances that'll work. Now, however, again, we're looking at this, I mean, there's a lot of things in here that are different than what the city allows. Namely, we're looking at the automatic changeable copy, the digital type signage, what we call the automatic changeable copy, which at this point the city does not allow. So there are going to be some inconsistencies, but if you would like, we can.
I'm talking about on like interstate.
You're just talking about
the
this
interstate.
specifically, yeah.
The interstate's the interstate, no matter if it's out there on Buchanan exit or if it's on Old Fort.
And if, like I said, what we can do is I'll just go back and pull those regulations. Like I said, we've looked at so many, it's not hard to get them confused. But we can make this consistent with what Murfreesboro's has, and then just present that as the draft for the July public hearing meeting. So.
Okay, talk about it.
I'm fine with that.
What about 840? 840 is not an interstate; it's a state route. The interchanges out there at some point in time are going to develop your Jefferson Pike, Elmville Road, Sulphur Springs, and we're going to have some guidelines. This says interstate sign on-site ground sign, but is 840
Well,
Is that an
840 is
interstate?
technically, it is technically a state route. It is not
Yeah.
an interstate.
So should we say interchange or something? It's a
Well,
little-
that's if you're wanting signs along 840. Now, we have looked into that a little bit. There was some discussion about whether 840 was a scenic highway. It's actually on the parkway system. There are regulations that deal specifically with signage on parkway systems. I don't think they're quite as to a great extent as the scenic parkways are. John Bragg Highway actually is a scenic, is designated as a scenic parkway. So at this point, we had decided to leave 840 off and just keep I-24 with the billboards, we're leaving that alone.
I just know at some point in time, there's going to be something come up at one of those interchanges on 840, and we're going to need some guidelines for that, and that's not an interstate, so these guidelines here wouldn't work, and it is on whatever list, like I said, if it's a scenic parkway or whatever, but as long as we know what to tell somebody when they come up at some point in time on that.
And these are the things, obviously, we're going to try our best to handle what signs that we can. There are going to be times when things come up where we may have to craft some new regulations for specific type signs in specific areas. At this point, honestly, I would feel more comfortable leaving 840 as one of those areas where right now there's really not any commercial development on it, so there's not the need for the signage. However, as we start seeing the infrastructure extended into that area, maybe we start identifying, what we'll be able to get into it on the front end, what kind of signage we want to see there, as opposed to reacting to something we don't want to see. I would recommend that approach.
Okay.
How does that work, though, Doug? If somebody comes forward with, a request for a sign, are you thinking because we'll be in front of it enough with the zoning of the land or the site plan or something that we'll have time to craft some language? Because I guess that's kind of my concern, is that where our regulations are silent, how do you tell somebody they can't do something along 840 that they might want to do?
Well, at this point, if you go to page 8 and right above the section that says allowed signage, section 20.04, you'll see item S, as in Sam there. And it says any other sign which is not expressly allowed is prohibited. That's how we would handle that right now. If it was silent on a particular issue, right now you just can't do it. Now, if we see something come in, or if we see like a large master planned area, let's just say on the 840 interchange over there at Almaville Road, we can come back and say, okay, well, they're looking for a certain kind of signage. Let's take a look at what they're wanting. Planning Commission, what do you want to see? Community, what do you want to see? Of course, they'll have to run through the zoning process more than likely anyway, because most of that area is still residentially zoned. And then they'd have to go through the site plan review process. So there would be time for us to craft some regulations, I think. So.
Okay, any other questions? We have a motion to put this on for public hearing next month. Have a motion to it. Do I have a second? All in favor of the motion say aye. All opposed, no. Motion carries. Okay, Doug.
Yeah, just one other item that I have. Just wanted to just to let you know that the Comprehensive Plan Steering Committee is going to be having a meeting next Monday. That'll be at 6 p.m. at the Board of Education building over on, I believe it's 2240 South Park Boulevard, over there off of South Church Street. We're really looking forward to this meeting. They've got the alternative growth scenarios and the base case scenario going through the land use modeling right now and getting some numbers churned out. Also, the fiscal analysis work is continuing, and this information will be presented at that meeting. And we expect that the steering committee will be choosing a future growth scenario to endorse at that time. So, again, just hope if you're able to attend, we'd love to have you there. This should be a really good night of discussion.
Okay, questions from that? All right.
That's all I have.
That's all you have? All right, Dale?
A couple of items. We met with the purchasing committee this afternoon. We awarded the contract to continue the work out at Fall Creek. Rollins Construction will get that, so we'll be clearing up those two sections where the developer went bankrupt. And then we've got some other cases we're checking into right now, potentially the same type of situation. In addition to that, as you know, last month we had the flooding problems throughout the county. We're putting together a database right now, I believe, talking to David and going through Roger. There's 330-something homes affected. We're trying to get pictures and data and stuff. We're creating a layer in our GIS system so that we'll try to identify areas where there's a large amount of deal, see if there's anything we can, it's continuation of that public works situation where we're cleaning out ditches and putting in some other pipes. Excuse me. We do have some disgruntled constituents out there. Some of them are not happy that they live next to a sinkhole, or perhaps they live in an area that's lower and they're getting some water. But we're trying to deal with those and explain to them the situation. Any questions on the flooding? I wanted to try to answer anything I could.
Dale, this hasn't got anything to do with the actual the flooding, but it's got something to do with flooding. Back a while back, and I've talked to Commissioner Robert Payne about this because it's in his district. I was at the car wash Saturday and got asked by a gentleman that was in opposition to the Dollar General store on Highway 96 towards Las Casas. It's my understanding is that the Miss Castleberry property behind that, water got up under her house due to the runoff. And I know when this come through the process, we promised them that we would make sure that the engineering and stuff like that was.
Well, we
do you know about any of this?
Yeah, they called us, and I was out there the following day. There was water around the house. They had moved her out of there. What we've done is we've gone out and shot some sites all along through that yard, and Todd Sullivan currently is checking the data we have there versus the original site plan and the original GPS to see. You're right, the original design was supposed to carry the water from that house around the building and onto the road. So to answer your question, we are aware of the problem. We have done some field work out in there, and then we're trying to put together a solution to the problem.
Is there any way someone from your all's office can get in touch with her and let her kind of know what's going on? Because from what I'm understanding is she's not fully aware of that the county may be doing something about this or working on it.
I have not talked to her personally. I did talk to, I believe, her son a couple of times on the phone, but I will go back out there and knock on the door. I've not actually gone to the door. We've had people out there in her yard shooting the topo and stuff that we needed for what we're doing, but we'll get back in touch with her.
Okay, thank
you. Okay. Anything else, Dale?
That's it, if there's no more questions.
Anyone have questions?
Actually, I had one other thing that I neglected to say on my report. You'll see on your tables before you, there's a couple of sheets of paper dealing with the RLUIPA law, the Religious Land Use and Institutionalized Persons Act. Basically what we're going to do is, as part of your required Public Chapter 862 training, you're required to have 4 hours of training every year as planning commissioners. Sam Edwards, and most of you will probably be familiar with Sam. He's the executive director of the Greater Nashville Regional Council, GNRC. He came and spoke to you, if you recall, regarding planning commissioner responsibilities. I believe it was in November of last year. He's going to be coming here during our day meeting, the 29th of June, and just wanted to reiterate that not on the 28th, but on the 29th at 9 a.m. Him and George Dean both are going to be here. They're going to do a presentation on the federal law, RLUIPA, the state law as well for Tennessee, which is fairly similar to the federal law, as well as go through some cases, example cases from Tennessee and throughout the country of just practical examples of how that's applied. So I just want to let you know that again will count toward your required Public Chapter 862 training for this year. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Anybody? Any other business? Any other business? Do you have a motion? Motion to adjourn. Do I have a second? Second. All in favor of the motion say aye. All opposed, no. Okay.